Hello, my technical drawing and design class. We are on the Georgian house project, assignment 13, the plot. This is the last part of this assignment, so we're going to wrap it up here, and there's a couple things we need to cover. First off, what we have been designing over here, this has always been in model space. You can see it down here in the tab, it says model. So this has allowed us to do all the work that we wanted to do. But when we go to output this and when we go to plot it, we need to actually go from this model space over to another space called paper space. So that's where our actual sheet of paper will be, and that's what shows up here down here in the layouts. We'll click on that in a second. You'll see the paper space when we get to it. But before we do that, we're going to have to change a couple of things over. First off, we're going to come in here and we're going to make sure that our door and all of our windows and shutters are all on the elevations level. So what you should be able to do is just click from bottom right and go top left, and you'll get the green boxes. You don't need to hold anything on the keyboard. With everything selected, make sure all of these are on the elevations level, just like that. Now, what we need to do is we're going to have to explode these things because we're going to make some modifications to these things right here. So I'm going to type, or actually I'm going to first select everything. So select the windows. Don't select the shutters. We're not going to need to change anything on them. Let's get the windows. Just like that. And the door. Just like that. And type explode. So the letter X, P-L-O-D-E. Explode. So not the regular spelling of the word explode. Leave off the beginning E. The letter X, P-L-O-D-E. Press enter. Now what this thing is telling me is, hey, you just gave me 9 objects that I'm supposed to be exploding. Are we doing these individually or we're going to do these things globally? We want to do this thing globally, so I'm just going to type in the word globally, G-L-O-B-A-L-L-Y. Press enter. And now what's asking us is to select an option. I should have done this a little bit higher. We want this to be inherent from parent block. I can select it from the command bar here as well. And now this thing is exploding it. Just gotta wait a second. It's getting it all done. Everything looks like it's back. So if I were to select a single part of this now, I should be able to get individual lines, which I can. Very good. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to change some of the colors here because when we go to plot this thing, uh, our colors, we're going to plot this out in monochrome or black and white, and it will scale our colors for us. This thing is so smart, it's already built into there. We can even adjust the scaling of it, but we're not going to do it for this. But it can be done. So the first thing we're going to do, let's come over to the door. We want the outer frame. So all of these parts, and again, you don't even need to hold down the shift or anything, just select them. Make sure I have them all here. There we go. I want all of these, change their color over to magenta. I want all of the interior parts, so I'm gonna press escape. Get all of my interior parts, and I am going to change those to red, just like that. Over here on the windows, I find it easier, really is easier to do it this way. We're gonna grab all these windows right here. And the shutters doesn't matter because we're changing all of this to magenta. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back to each one of these windows and grab the buttons from inside. So I can just grab all these. I don't even need to hold a shift or anything. Just click again. I have these two. Change them from magenta to red. Good to go. Just go ahead and let's do this real quick for all of these. Here we go. Red. If I wanted to, I could even do both of these windows at the same time. I'm just going to shift them over a little bit. There we go. There we go. And I'm going to change those to red. Press escape. We're looking good so far. Shift over here. Once again, let's turn all of this into magenta. And then let's work on these windows. And the mountains. Grab these. Here. Here. There. Oops, I don't need that. If you get an extra line like I just did, if you hold the shift key down, that'll turn your crosshairs into the minus sign. And let's grab all these. There we go. Turned it all into red. Press escape. And there we go. So my shutters are all in magenta. My window frames are all magenta. My door frames are all magenta. The muntins and all the small parts to your door go into red. So if you did your door up a little bit cool, you maybe put a doorknob or something like that in there, turn that all red. Alrighty. So continue on. We have all that done. Next, we're going to zoom out. We're going to come up to our main plot here. We're going to take the center line and delete it. Take the opposite center line and delete it. And then the centering line to the water closet, we will delete that as well. Very good. All right, now we are ready to go ahead and set our plot up. So first thing we're going to do is change our limits. Limits. We're going to reset our model space. At the bottom left corner is going to be 0, tab 0. Enter. The upper right is now going to be 96 feet by 144. What I'm really just doing is actually shifting everything around, so I'm working in a vertical space here. I'm going to zoom all. There we go, so y'all can see what we have here. But obviously there are parts that are outside of the limits. Let's go ahead and move all this over. Move, specify base point. Looks like a good one. Turn my ortho off. And we're going to put this right in the middle. There we go. I think I'm going to move this part down a little bit because I want the space here. Move. Turn the ortho back on for this because I want to make sure these things all line up. There we go. Perfect. All right, now with our limits set, we're going to add some text to this. So go ahead and type in DT for dynamic text, enter. It is going to ask us for our starting point. We're going to go ahead and just start this right about here. That should be fine. Specify our height. For our height for these titles, we're looking at 9 inches. So 9 inches. For our ortho, I tend to just kind of move it off to the side a little bit. That's fine. So it shows that my ortho is now at 0. I can press enter. Make sure your cap locks are on. Oh, wait, I almost messed up here. I almost messed up. I need to make sure I'm on the text layer. That would have been bad. All right, so once again, now I'm on the text layer. And DT for dynamic text. Starting point right here. And once again, this is going to be 9 inches. My rotation, that looks good. I'm at 0. Cap locks are on. The first one, let's see here, what are we calling the front of this thing, is floor plan. Enter twice, it'll get me out of the dynamic text. Go ahead and do another dynamic text. This is going to be for the front. Try to keep these somewhat close to being in line. Text is 9 inches. Ortho is 0. We're good there. And the front of this one is front elevation. Elevation. Enter, enter. There we go. So we now have our text in here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line in here. We're going to do a polyline. This is a really cool feature. So check this out. We're going to type a polyline. It's going to ask us for what is our starting point. We're just going to say right there. Now we have these options. You can see them down there in the bottom. We can do an arc. We can do a half width. We can do a length, undo, a width. We want width. So just type in width. W-I-D-T-H. It's saying, what is our starting width? For this line, we're going to do our starting width at 3 inches. Say enter. Now it's asking you what's going to be our ending width. Once again, I want that to be 3 inches because I don't want this to be like a triangle or anything like that. Now I'm just going to go ahead and tell it my line. I have my ortho on, so I make sure my line is straight. I'm going to do something probably about out to here. And there it is. Press escape. I now have this polyline, but it is to the thickness that I want it to be. Let's go ahead and do this again. Polyline. Specify the starting point, right about where the text is. We're going to do width. So W-I-D-T-H. And I want the width to be 3 inches. I want my ending width to be 3 inches. And then I can just go ahead and draw my line. Something like that. Press escape. And I have that nice thick line. All right, after this, we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of text under here. So I'm going to do DT for dynamic text. And we're going to put in here, what just happened? Everything's, try that again. DT, enter. Where do I want this to start? Right about here. And my height for this, this is not a title. This is the project title. These are going to be 6 inches. So 6 inches. Go. My rotation is 0, so we're good to go there. That's fine. And this is, put my cap locks back on, the Georgian house. Enter, enter. That's good. I'm gonna make my life a little bit easier. I'm gonna put a line right here. And the only thing this line is gonna do is help line me up. Help line me up. So DT, enter, specify starting point, start right there. Height 6 inches. Rotation, we're good there. And this one is going to be drawn by Space Greg. That's me. Only once. And the date. Colon. And today's date is January. This is the date I'm doing this video. January 11th, 2021. Set in place. There we go. And I can get rid of this little line right here. So it's just for lining things up. There we go. So we have our text in here. We did a polyline. It all looks good. Let's go ahead and set up our paper space, and then we can output this thing and be done. So what we're going to do is we're going to first click right over here on layout 1. It's going to bring up our page setup manager right at the beginning. From here, let's go ahead and just go to modify. For our printer plotter, we can set this now or we can set this later. It's going to be up to us. I'm just going to go ahead. I know it's going to be an AutoCAD PDF high quality. Again, you can always leave that alone. It is up to you. My paper space or my page size, I want this to be 11 by 17, which it already is. That's an ANSI 11 by 17 inches. What do I want to plot? I can just plot the display, the layout, or the window. I'm just going to say the layout. Let's perfectly fine. Over here, my plot scale. Change your plot scale to a 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. And then you also want to scale your line weights. So we're doing well there. We're going to come up here to our plot style. I want you to choose monochrome. Actually, I apologize. You don't need to select the scale line weights. My bad on that one. So we have monochrome. We're good to go there. Down here in the plot options, plot object line weights is good. Plot transparency off. Plot with plot styles is on. Plot paper space last is on. Hide paper space objects is off. Change your orientation to portrait. This way everything lines up. That's why the whole reason we set our limits the way we did. And say OK. We're going to be back into here with layout 1. I'm going to say close, and we can see this is it right here. If I wanted to, I could double click on it and say, hey, let's make this thing bigger. Let's get to the edge. I can make things bigger in here. So on and so forth. Let's come over here to the layout. The other thing we can do is create our own viewport if we wanted to. Let's see what else we can do here. Press escape. Now inside of this, I could change the rotation if I wanted to. I can scale it up or down. I can pan it around. So let's see here. I'm going to grab my tool here. Grab zoom. Okay. Let's go there again. Pan this thing around. And you can adjust this how you want. Don't worry about the grid, it will go away. So I'm just going to put this right up in here. I like this. There we go. Sounds good. Actually not. There we go. There we go. That's where I want it. Press escape. I can get off of this. Now, the other thing while you're here, go ahead and change your layout name. You can either double click it or you can right click and say rename. And what our naming convention is going to be on this is going to be Georgian, Georgian. Oops, my capitals are all goofy. Georgian, Georgian House Project. And then the school year. So this is going to be 2020-2021 for the school year that I'm writing this. Very good. All right, everything looks good here. Now let's go ahead and plot this thing. It probably would not hurt to go ahead and save this. It's probably best before we go into the plot. So I am going to call this one last name. I'm going to give change this to plot. Plot. There we go. Some other stuff. This is an old version of this thing. Save. Very cool. Now we're going to plot this thing. Come up here, grab your printer, print plot. Let's see here. We can come right in here to our plotter, and it's our AutoCAD PDF. It's not there. Go ahead and select it. We have our page size 11 by 17. What are we plotting? We're plotting the layout because that is what we have down here. We're not offsetting this thing. We already have our scale, which we set before. We have our, which this sets these parts here when we set it up here. We already have our monochrome. We don't need to plot in the background. This is not going to be that hard. Object line weights is on. This is all looks good. Make sure that plot stamp is on. And when it's on, I want you to select that. It is going to bring this up here. The ones that you need to have selected is your layout name, your date and time, your login name, and your plot scale. So layout name, date and time, login name, and plot scale. And say OK. And there we are. We are ready to plot this thing. If you wanted to, you can hit preview real quick. It's going to generate a neat little preview. Yep, there it is. I can move lines around, stuff like that, if I wanted to make sure this thing sat a little bit better. Maybe I said, okay, before I do that, I want to get this line up a little bit. Double click on this line. There we go. So get me back in there. My computer's acting funny. Come on. Okay, there we go. There we go. So now I have my blue line. Go ahead and pull this up a little bit. Apparently he wants to fight with me today. Let's try to trigger ortho off. All right, whatever. So we have our plot. Let's once again go ahead and hit plot here. We have our PDF, we're happy, everything looks good. Preview this again. Everything should still be there like we had, Georgian House Project. This has the year, has the month and day, has our time, and has my name and their scale, 1/2 to 12 inches. So go and close out of there. I will now say OK. And I'm just going to set this on my desktop at the moment. Give this a different name. Actually, I'll just leave that name. That's fine. Say OK. And I bring this over. You can see here we go. We are in a monochrome. If I wanted to zoom in, here we go. Fit to width. There we go. All my numbers are in here, and we are looking good. I probably will go back and change this so this line doesn't go through there. That just looks tacky. But with that said, this is the end of the Georgian House project. You will need to turn in this this PDF. You will need to turn in your final plot DWG file, and let's get ready for the next project. Any questions? Please let me know.